very important things occur to me. Anyway, I just came from a visit with my doctor and therapist, and I was telling them how after over 25 years off and on in therapy with a great therapist who is almost a mother figure to me, she was so empowering to me. After so many years of studying on my own issues and her teaching me to see the patterns in myself, and studying psychology on my own, just really investing in my own issues and my own life and making that a priority for a great deal of my life to learn about myself and grow from my traumatic childhood issues. After all of that, and getting to the age that I am now, I had never realized until just about 2 weeks ago that I had severe abandonment issues. And I have been well aware of most all of my own psychological patterns for years. I had an alcoholic, narcissist father who was physically, emotionally, and sexually abusive. I had a very traumatic and strange relationship with him, which I will get into later on the channel. My mother was detached. She was scared of him. She was unable to protect. She made an attempt to when I was a very small girl. I will talk about that experience one day. But other than that, she really wasn't able to protect me. These things went on for years under what seemed like right under her nose. And so that's a little bit about my traumatic background, how I grew up. And as I got older and worked things out in therapy and of course started getting into relationships and early marriage, I had 2 marriages. Of course, after a childhood like that, I developed certain toxic patterns, codependency issues, my own narcissistic tendencies, manipulative, all sorts of things, of course, happened to me in my early life that I had to work out in therapy and evolve from. And I knew that for most of my life, even through all of my growth and realizing those patterns, I knew that I had a tendency to get really clingy, especially in my early years. But once I got on close to my 30s, late 20s, early 30s, I had really worked most of that out. I started coming into my own as a woman. I went back to school, I went to college, got an associate's degree. I raised 2 boys. I started working on my passions, really getting to know myself. And I took a number of years away from dating. And I really worked on a lot of those codependency issues and coming into my own strong self-respect, self-identity, self-love. And I pretty much thought I had it licked. A little therapy here and there to maintain, a little study on my own here and there. But then, sometimes we people from traumatic backgrounds, we think we get to a point in our life where we got it. We're good. We're good. We know everything that's been out there to teach us. We know what you're going to tell us. We already know. We get to a point where we think we've got it. We think we know. We think we don't need any more therapy. We think we beat all that shit, right? We know everything. We know so much now that we can handle it. Almost like a drug addiction. Really. That's the same thing, same kind of thing an addict tells themselves. Oh, I can have just one. I can have just one beer. I can have just one pill. I got this. I've studied. I got myself. I got this under control. Nope. Clearly, I didn't. Okay? Even though I thought I was well studied enough therapy. I had stood on my own as a woman and found my identity, and I had done well for a while. Clearly, I didn't. Because there were later relationships that came into my life and something awful happened to me. I began to trigger off. And I realized it, but didn't. This is how deep-rooted, complex, and tricky childhood wounds can be when they manifest in your current relationships. If you come from a traumatic background, I assure you, A lot of what you do and say and act on and feel is still tied to your childhood, some unresolved thing, something you might not have addressed or healed on or had enough therapy on. Even if you have had a lot of therapy, I assure you, if you come from a traumatic background, you're still struggling and dealing with subconscious issues all of the time, and you have to be very aware. So, as time went on, I began to notice that, wow, I thought I had all this beat. I know the patterns. I know my father's an alcoholic. I know for years I ran around doing the saving thing and the rescuing people thing and being attracted to certain people that were all alcoholics. Okay, my therapist taught me of all those subconscious patterns of trying to save the parents, trying to recreate the same scenario, those early caretakers in our life, whoever they were. We recreate the same scenario unconsciously over and over by who we attract, who we trigger, or who we get attracted to. Something triggers off in our subconscious. And I know for a fact, the smell of alcohol, all those things, whatever you experienced when you were a little girl, innocent, vulnerable, loving and trusting that caretaker, whatever they did to you and whatever you were surrounded by is what you are subconsciously going to search out, even if that's really not what you want as an adult, even if that's the last thing the hell you want. And so many people are so uninformed on these type of things, they can't see it. They're not that deeply psychologically in tune, and they judge other people in a position like that, like, why does she want to be treated so bad? Why does she choose assholes? She must want to be abused. Women like her just want assholes. They don't want good men. They want to be abused. Absolutely not. You need to get educated and informed on how psychology works, on how these psychological patterns live in the back of the mind of a person who was traumatized in childhood by a certain caretaker in a certain manner. And when you see a woman or a man staying in a cycle like that with another grown partner, you will automatically know there is a trauma bond, there is a subconscious childhood wound there are triggers going on, and that's that. And that will give you a little deeper insight rather than just judge them as they want to be abused. They want an asshole in their life. Don't do that. Why don't you educate yourself and get some depth, okay? So I don't like it when people do that. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. But I realize they don't have the education or the depth to look into others and be able to see these things and sense those things. So, that's that. But it happened to me like that. I thought I had it licked, independent, did my thing, got to know myself as a woman, feeling really great about it, went to college, raising kids, making music, doing my thing, feeling great. But clearly I did not have those issues licked, and I began to trigger off. Specifically a relationship I got into about 5 years back, and I had put serious relationships on hold for almost 20 years after my marriage and divorce from my children's father when they were small. I kind of just did my thing and dated casually. I kept people at a distance while raising my children, did my thing. I did get involved with people. I did have another 10-year on-again, off-again turbulent relationship that not only scarred me a lot, but it taught me a lot. And I have to respect that person because he was always brutally honest with me, even though it hurt me. I learned a lot from that relationship. But we didn't move in together. I did form a trauma bond, and the same tie. He was alcoholic. A lot of those cycles went on, but I learned a lot. In fact, I came into my own a hell of a lot in that particular relationship. But I kept everything at a distance for a long number of years. No moving in, no closeness. I had a lot of different issues. Attachment and abandonment issues, clearly. But also at the same time, not wanting to be smothered or controlled. So choosing emotionally unavailable partners the whole time subconsciously so they would never smother and control me like my father did. But then at the exact same time, feeling depressed and sad, not wanting to be abandoned and clinging. I had all of those things, many years of that to really work out, study on, examine, grow from. And it just astounds me. I'm in my early 40s now, and I am astounded at all the work I've really done and how hard I've applied myself, but still how little I knew. How I thought I had it beat. I really did. And how for some of us, it requires lifelong dedication, lifelong maintenance, lifelong investment in ourselves and our studies, our therapy, our growth, understanding. It is a lifelong thing, you know. And it happens. Sometimes we just get tired of it. Sometimes we've been working on our issues so damn long, we're just like, fuck this. I don't want to think about it anymore. I don't want to deal. I got it. It's cool. I'm just going to do some shit. I'm just going to run with some shit that I know isn't good for me. I know damn well what I'm doing here. I know the pattern, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes we do that, so don't beat yourself up. Just realize what's going on. Get with your therapist. Seek some help. And try to see where you're at with it. Examine your emotions. Examine what's going on in your relationship. Take a look at those things, you know. Try to differentiate. Is this a trauma bond? Is this something to do with my early caretakers and parents? Does this person that's in my life right now represent them in any way? You know? But to wrap this up, this is going to be a quick one, you guys. I just want to get it out there, and I will make a second part, and I'll go a little more deeply into this. But about 5 years ago, I got involved with someone, long story short, just a friend who I really admired and respected. I had known for a number of years off and on, whatever. He got into a bad place in life. I wanted to give him a boost and help out. Cool, that's what happened. But things started moving along and getting very, very serious, really before I wanted them to get that serious. Because I knew to be careful, and this person, too, was an alcoholic. Here we go. And after all those years of kind of keeping my distance from close relationships, that trigger went off again. And this time, I made it clear to this person. I said, you know, I have a traumatic past. I have a lot of issues that I work on, that I struggle with. And in no way, shape, or form do I want a trauma bond with you. I want this to be real. If we do this, because I'm feeling it, but I also want to be careful. I want us to be able to differentiate between trauma bonding, childhood cycles, and catch ourselves in the middle of it while growing and working on our relationship, and be aware of those things and stop them right there. Examine them for what they are and really be aware of that, okay? I do not want another trauma bond. I refuse to play out my childhood cycles of chasing my alcoholic father, trying to save him, trying to make him a better parent, or chasing my mother because she wouldn't listen, she couldn't hear me, she was checked out, cartooned out, in denial, she couldn't protect me, she didn't stand up as a woman, she didn't have that empowered situation. You know, I want to be able to catch myself in the act if I start going into those cycles in this relationship and doing something that I realize is an old tie. And while you expect your partner to do a certain amount in the relationship, you can tell a difference between this is what I'm wanting my partner to do on a normal level, and this is how much he, in a healthy way, should be here for me. And you can tell the difference between that and I'm going overboard now. I'm really on him about this, and oh my God, why am I so overboard about it? Oh shit. It's because my mother didn't hear me. Oh my God, I'm triggering right now. It's because she didn't listen. She cartooned out. She gaslighted. And he's doing it right now, so oh shit, I'm triple on fire. I'm triple triggered now. So I'm expecting not only, yes, it is your partner's responsibility to listen to you sometimes and to give a certain healthy amount. But if they don't, and you have traumatic childhood issues with being abandoned or not heard, not seen, emotionally abused, you're going to trigger on that partner, and it's going to be a double whammy. You're expecting what they should be putting into the relationship on that level, and you're expecting what your mother and father didn't give you. Those really deep-rooted, unmet, painful needs of being abandoned, ignored, denied, shamed, abused, whatever. See? Okay. And that's what happens. And I put this down with him from day one. I was very educated on these things and my own patterns and had studied it for years and been in therapy, and he was not. Very intellectual guy, but just not in tune with his own psychology, whatever the hell had been going on with him for years, yada, yada, yada. He agreed with me like he knew, and we had this agreement, but clearly, as time went on, he had no idea really what I was talking about. He knew he had some issues, sure, and he had been self-medicating them for years, but he had no real idea, I don't think, of let's watch out for trauma bonding, let's watch out for childhood patterns and unmet needs and baggage coming into play in our relationship and playing out. Let's watch out for old cycles and patterns that we didn't get from our parents. Let's catch ourselves in the act. Let's admit it. Let's face it. Let's examine it. Work through it. I want our love to be real. I want our relationship to be on a real adult level. Honest, mature, there, healthy. Okay? But in order to have that, we have to recognize the past, okay? And although he agreed to all of that, no. An alcoholic cannot be on board with all that. And we proceeded down the road to a very toxic relationship. And it was the first one I had allowed in all the way in almost 20 years. All the way into my life, my home, my soul, my vulnerability. I wanted to prove to myself that I could have a real, mature, honest, respectable relationship in an adult manner, keep the childhood issues at bay, know the difference, and not be commitment phobic, because I was actually commitment phobic for years. I explained that earlier, how I would keep everything at a distance and, only surface, and I was really commitment phobic, but yet at the same time, feeling abandoned and sad, all those mixed feelings. So I really wanted to do this, not only because I loved him, I fell for him, I saw great qualities in him, I was attracted. So it was real. But I also wanted to prove to myself, girl, you don't need to hide behind commitment phobia anymore. You've studied enough, you've worked on yourself enough, you don't have to be a coward. You don't have to keep your heart on lock. You don't have to band up your vulnerability and guard it so tough. You can take a chance on love now because you are confident in the fact that you've got yourself if it fails, right? And that's why a lot of people cannot risk loving someone fully. They keep a part of themselves hidden, a part of their heart on lock. They continue secretly seeing other people. They do all sorts of things, and they don't fully emotionally show up for the relationship they're in because they haven't worked on those issues, and they have no confidence. They are codependent, and they have no confidence in themselves that they can catch their heart and take care of themselves and bounce back from it if they are rejected, if the relationship fails. We will get into all that later on the channel, you guys. So this did happen to me, and I did realize, I would say things like, look, I don't want to get in an emotional trap. It's happened to me before where I get involved with someone and they start acting out or pulling all of these head games, or because they're insecure and inferior, they may start seeing other girls or throwing things in my face or holding things over my head because they want me to serve a toxic agenda for them that I don't want to be in. And then they start narcissistically just throwing me to the side and looking up other girls and things like that. I don't want to get in because I do trigger over stuff like that. And now, just recently in the last few weeks, I've gotten to the roots of why. And that holds me, it has held me emotionally hostage so many times. And the feeling inside from that, the loss of self-respect, the way it eats away at your soul, man. But I have some stories to tell you guys of empowerment and times in my past where I really did recognize this and took a stand on it and set those boundaries down, got my self-respect, felt great about myself. But to wrap this up, yeah, after all those years of kind of keeping things at a distance and whatnot, 5 years ago, I did let something in. All the way, trusted it, made up my mind, you know, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to try. I thought I had it all worked out, you know. Really. I discussed this with him. I pressed this. I prioritized. We got everything on the table before we got serious. This was really important to me. And I really thought I had all the bases covered, you know, and really come to find out the whole time, no. Not only did he have severe issues that were way over both of our heads, that he had never been able to deal with or face or work on or whatever, but I still had issues that I did not have healed and under control as I thought. And I completely triggered subconsciously, here we go, the alcoholic, the father in the past. Here is this person, as time goes on, wanting me to serve more and more of a toxic agenda that I'm not comfortable with. And here's me triggering, wanting his validation, wanting him to see me, wanting him to hear me, understand me. Okay, there's the mother issue. And, you know, finding myself getting quite clingy to him. In fact, we were both very clingy to each other at times. But I was the one that could also back up and go, whoa, this isn't right. I won't do this. I'm going to take a step back. Because of my father being so controlling and smothering, I've always had a fierce need for some space as well, and a very strong sense of personal identity. Whoa, I got to get back to myself. So all that was going on at one time. But I never really knew that tendency in me to cling, I have done that, and I did do that a lot. Just cling and try to get him to understand, just understand me, hear this, do this, give me that, see me, understand, give me that validation. Well, a certain amount of that is expected in a partner, yes. But I had to recognize, whoa, wait a minute, you're going into your childhood here. And so I didn't really realize the extent of abandonment issues I had, and that's really the biggest part of why I was triggering so hard and clinging so hard to a toxic relationship, not letting go of it, trying to make it work, trying harder, doing more, putting more energy in. And that is the most toxic thing you can ever do. That's not loving someone. It is not showing real love for them. It's showing that you're insecure, low self-esteem, low self-respect, extremely codependent, extremely riddled with abandonment issues, and that you've got something extremely toxic in your past and wounded, and clearly it's not resolved. That's what that indicates and shows when you do that. You know? And as time went on, I began to become embarrassed of myself because I knew better. I just didn't know exactly what I know now. I knew these patterns were bad. I knew it wasn't right to continue to give him that energy instead of just stand my boundaries and cut off the toxic situation. But because of my past and those deep-rooted wounds and triggers, it was so hard for me to let go and stand my ground and get my self-respect back. And I know it even more now because just a few weeks ago, I realized the large extent of abandonment issues that I actually have. I didn't know that. I didn't really realize the full extent of it, okay? Now, I explained why I knew I was a little bit clingy and had the tendency to do so and then pull back and run because of the things I experienced in the past. But as far as full-on abandonment issues, I never really called myself that. I never really thought that because nobody left me. My mom didn't leave me. My dad didn't leave me. You know, I was the runner. I started running away from home at 12. I ran from them. But here's what it is, okay? And I'll tell you who really set this in stone for me and helped me discover this. I don't care if it sounds flaky, whatever you want to think. Sloan Bella. Yep, from sloanbella.com. Now don't get me wrong. I've been taught these patterns very early on by my therapist. A very well-respected, accredited therapist, psychotherapist, okay? So I knew of these patterns. But when it really finally clicked with me, and I had been working on them all through the years, but when it really clicked with me, the large extent of abandonment issues I really have, and what was making me trigger and cling so hard to something so toxic, was Sloan Bella from sloanbella.com. She's also here on YouTube. She is a psychic. Yep, I love her. She had a traumatic childhood, much like my own. She hit the streets at a young age, and she began developing her psychic abilities at a young age. That came to her, and she was in the streets and trying to survive at a young age, running away, doing things just like me. I was blown away when I found that out about her. And she worked as she got older with young women in shelters, traumatized young people in the streets, runaways, people working in the sex industry, all of these different things. And what she does is work to help people move that childhood wound inside that keeps them so trapped in their adult life that they don't even realize. Almost all addicts, people in the sex industry, have a traumatic childhood wound that they have not dealt with or healed from, and it's often sexual abuse. Not every one of them, but a lot of them. So, Sloan Bella helped me to, it was something she taught one day a few weeks back that clicked, it completely clicked in my mind what had been going on with me. Because of how her family treated her, she talked about how people develop complete and total abandonment issues. Because of the fact that my father was an alcoholic, number one, he is checked out, right? He's not the parent. He's not acting like the father. He's not protecting me like he's supposed to. He's not loving me like he's supposed to. Often he's drunk and acting childish and juvenile. Boom, right there. I'm supposed to be the kid. He's supposed to be the parent and the father. Number one, that's abandonment. He mentally, physically, emotionally abandoned me just by being an alcoholic. Number two, my mother, weak, checked out, went into denial, could not see me, could not hear me, didn't ask me, didn't pay attention, wasn't able to be that strong, empowered source of protection for me. Boom! Number two. Abandonment issue number two. Right there. Okay? Number three. When this all came out, my paternal grandmother told me, "Don't you say those things about your daddy. You know he would never do that." Bam! Abandonment number three. My own family told me that as a little girl. Made me feel helpless, crazy, ashamed, wrong, a liar. That's what people do to little kids in toxic families. So that's 3 abandonments right there. Complete and total abandonment. Okay? And then the whole family, basically how it played out. I'll go into that later on my channel. But you can begin to see a pattern here of how I was abandoned in so many ways. It's unbelievable. God. And I knew that in their own separate ways, but I never really was able to put it all together full force to understand that I have severe abandonment issues because of all of these facts. Yep. And wow, I have to say, it really clicked with me with Sloan. And even though other people have taught me about these patterns and worked with me on similar concepts, and all of it helped over the years, and I worked on a lot of it over the years, but man, the level that it really clicked with me, and this I got in. Having to see his wounds and his issues and how we played out together, that also led up to it really clicking in my mind what's wrong with me, what I've been suffering from a lot all of these years that has not yet been resolved, okay? Very empowering stuff. I just wanted to get that out there and share that with you guys. I will make a part 2 to this. I hope you got something out of it. You guys have a great day and tune back in later.